Today we're going to talk about managing different HISE versions using Git. And one thing I see people doing a lot is they will go to the HISE source code on GitHub. They'll go to this button here, click download zip and download the source code. And then when they want another version of the source code, they'll switch the branch and then they'll do the same thing, code, download zip. And if they want to get a particular commit, they'll go to the commits, they'll go to the code, and then they'll go download zip, and they end up with multiple copies of the same stuff on their computer, which just kind of completely defeats the purpose of using Git. So today I'm going to show you how to do it properly. You don't want to have multiple copies of the source code on your system because you'll invariably end up with conflicts where you're trying to compile a project with the wrong version of the source code against the version of HISE that you've got, and you'll just get a bunch of errors and you'll end up posting them on the forum, and then I'll tell you to go and delete every copy of the source code you've got. So let's do it properly. So the first thing you need to do is on your computer you need to install Git. So let's talk a bit about this actually, because Git and GitHub for people who are unfamiliar can be a bit confusing. So Git is a piece of software that runs on your computer and you use it to manage different versions of source code. And it can track, we call it tracking, where it keeps an eye on changes made to different files and lets you know which ones have been updated and which ones haven't. And it can track any file that's text-based, so it doesn't have to be a text file as such, it doesn't have to have a TXT extension. It can be JSON, XML, JavaScript, C++, any file that's text-based. Git will look inside the file and follow any changes that have been made so that you can keep track of different versions without having to have multiple copies of the same file. So the first thing you want to do is go to git-scm.com, go to downloads and download the version that's for your system and install it. If you're on Mac OS, it's probably included in the package manager, and it definitely is for Linux. On Windows, you'll be given the option when you install it to install a bash command terminal, and I recommend you do that because it's a bit better than using the Windows command line. Okay, so when you have Git on your system, you can manage a folder of source code and have Git track it, and when it's managing a folder of source code, we call that folder a repository or a repo. Now GitHub is a place where you can share those repos or download other people's and collaborate, but it's entirely separate to Git. They're two different things. So GitHub is a place owned by Microsoft for sharing Git repos, but there are other places. There's GitLab, there's Bitbucket, and anybody can make a hosting platform for Git repos. You can have your own private Git server where you host your repos. You don't have to use one of these, but I think the most popular one is GitHub. And in our case, that's where the source code for HISE is, so that's the one we use. Oh, by the way, I'm going to be using the command line for most of the stuff we're doing today, but there are GUI clients available. I recommend you get to know the command line. It's not complicated for most things and the tasks we'll be doing, but there are some parts where a GUI client can be helpful, and I'll actually show you the one I use a little later on. But get to know the command line and then use a GUI client because you find it more convenient, not because you're using it to replace your understanding of how Git actually is doing what it's doing. So you've got Git installed, you go inside the GitHub repo for HISE, you go to code, and you'll see this link here. So we're not clicking download zip, we're going to copy this link, and you can just click this button here and it will copy it. Then you want to open a terminal, or if you're using Git on Windows, open the bash terminal that Git installed, and from the terminal you need to navigate to the place you want to download the source code to. So I'm just going to do it to my desktop. So to navigate to the desktop in the terminal, and I think this is the same across all operating systems, you type CD for change directory, and then I'm just going to type desktop, but you might have to put a more full path in there. So I'm now on my desktop, and then I'm going to type git clone, and I'll paste that URL we copied. and then I'll hit enter, and it's going to download Christoph's HISE repo onto my desktop. So we'll just give that a moment. Okay, so that's done, and if we cd into the HISE folder, clear that, let's see what files are in there. So we can see we've got all the files that are in this repo on GitHub. And I'll open it in the file browser as well, for those of you that like the GUI. So that is the Git repo. Now this is now a local repo on my system. This isn't, we're not looking at the files on GitHub, we're looking at them on my computer. However, because of the way we've done this with the Git clone, the repo on my computer is linked, or it's referencing these files on GitHub. So if I type git remote-v, and if I spell it correctly, git remote-v, we can see that the origin it's referencing is that URL that we copied, which is Christoph's GitHub URL. Okay, and that's it. Now we've got a local version of the HISE source code on our system. So that was the git clone command. Now I'm going to type git branch, and this will list all the branches that we have on our system. So we've only got the master branch by default. It downloads the master. If we go into the GitHub page, we can see that there are several branches. The one that's been most recently updated is the develop branch. So you're probably going to want the develop branch. So generally, when you're deciding which version of HISE to build, you go for the one that's been most recently updated. Sometimes they won't build and you'll get errors, but usually it's quite reliable. If you want something that I suppose is meant to be slightly more stable, go for the master branch, but really the master branch is just kind of a one that doesn't get updated as often. If you want the cutting edge, go for develop, and it's sometimes more stable than master, sometimes it's equally as stable, but really I just use develop all the time. If you're ever in doubt of which branch you should be using or which commit, just ask on the forum and somebody will tell you. So to switch to the develop branch, we're going to write git checkout develop. And if I type git branch, we can now see we've got two branches and we are on the develop branch. If I type git log, we can see a list of the commits, and the most recent commit was today, and it was this added copy test JSON to clipboard button. So we can have a look at the commits in the develop branch. And yeah, added copy test JSON to clipboard button. So we are on the develop branch and we've got the latest changes that Christoph has made on GitHub. So that's how you switch between branches, just git checkout and then the branch name. So now we're on the master branch, git checkout, develop, now we're on the develop branch. If I wanted to go to the new layout branch, git checkout, new layout. And now we'll have three local branches. Now let's say, let me just make this a bit smaller. Let's say we're going to switch to the develop branch. Oh, git checkout develop. So now we're on the develop branch and we no longer need the new layout on our system. So we can delete that. So you type git branch dash capital D for delete, and then the name of the branch you want to delete. So we'll delete new layout. We don't need that anymore. There we go, deleted branch. One thing you'll find using the command line is Git will help you a lot. It will give you little hints like this and tell you what's going on. So I'll type git branch. We can see we've only got two branches again. You may have seen earlier when I typed git remote, I accidentally typed git remove -v, and you can see Git's actually helping me here. It's saying there, that's not a command, maybe you meant remote. So you see, it gives you hints and it helps you along. So the command line, don't be scared of it. It's there to help you, and it's pretty clear what everything's doing. It's not hidden behind a GUI. You can actually see exactly what's happening. So the last thing we need to look at here is how to go to a particular commit. So let's say you went to the latest one like we've done, and it didn't build for some reason. There's some kind of bug in it that's preventing it building temporarily. So for now, you just want to go to the last one that somebody's told you does work. So let's say this one, fixed compilation. Let's say you want to go to this commit. So what you can see over here is we have a number. Each of these commits has a number. So every time a change is recorded by Git, it gives it a unique number, and it's called a Git hash. And if we click this button here, it will copy to our clipboard that hash. And then we can write git checkout, and instead of putting a branch name, we can just paste that hash and hit enter. And now we've moved to that commit. If I type git log, you can see the latest commit now is fixed compilation, which is this one down here. So now we've jumped to that, and this source code in here is now at this particular point in time. It will look exactly like, if we click on this, it will be at this state. But it hasn't overwritten the other code that's still there on the other branches. So we can always go back, or we can go forward to a different commit. So instead of going to fixed compilation, maybe we go to, what do we have? Removed old code. Let's go to here. So we copy that, press Q to get out of there, git checkout, and now we're at this one, removed old code. So we can have a look. There we go, removed old code. So it's really easy to jump around between different commits and different branches just by using one command, git checkout, and then either the commit hash or the branch name. Really simple. Now when you do check out to a commit and not a branch, you're in what's called a detached head state. So let's see what happens if I type git branch. You can see it's created this sort of temporary thing called detached. Now you may want to kind of anchor that down so any changes you make stick, because at the moment if you make any changes they won't be recorded by Git because you're not in a branch. So to create a branch from this detached state, you can type git switch -c and then give it a name, call it temp. And now if I type git branch, we're now on this temporary branch, I'm going to call it, and we could build this now and we could work with HISE, and then maybe when Christoph fixes whatever's broken with develop, we go back and we check out develop again, just by going to git checkout develop. When we do that, we can delete our temp branch. And then we're just back to where we started. So the only commands you really need to be aware of most of the time for managing HISE versions are git checkout, git branch just to list your branches, git checkout to switch branch, and if you do switch to a detached head state and you want to anchor it down temporarily, just do git switch -c and then the name of the branch. One other command you will want is to be able to get the latest changes from GitHub. So Christoph makes a new change, you want it on your local system, you just type git pull. And there are no changes, so we're already up to date. But if there had been, you'd see a whole load of text as it updates all the various files. So that's the really simple version. And now we're going to look at something a little more complicated, but not too complicated. And this is something you'll do once you get a bit more advanced and you want to start making your own changes to the HISE source code. So I'm just going to go back to my desktop, and let's clear that. And this HISE source code folder we have on the desktop, I'm going to delete that. And let's go back to GitHub. So what we have here, this is Christoph's repo that we were looking at before. And what we have here is my repo, which I have forked. You can see that little symbol there maybe. This little symbol indicates that it's a fork. So this is my fork of Christoph's GitHub repo. And you need to have a GitHub account to do this, but once you go to Christoph's repo, you click this button over here that says fork, and it will give you your own version of the HISE source code, which you can change in any way you like, and it will not affect Christoph's version or anybody else's version. So this is my version. And if we go to branches, you can see I've got a lot more branches than we saw in Christoph's. So if we go here, Christoph's only got, like, in the active branches, develop a new layout. I've got all of these, and these are the active ones. And I don't even have the develop branch. So you can maintain your own version of the source code independently of Christoph's. But look at this, my development branch, which is the one I work on all the time. You can see I don't even have the latest master, mine's 3 years old. The development branch is the one I work with. That was updated 11 days ago, but if we look at Christoph's, that was updated 8 hours ago. So I want to get the latest changes from Christoph's develop branch into my development branch. So let's look at how we do that. So assuming you've made a fork, you click the fork button, you go to code and you copy this URL just like we did for Christoph's, but notice it's got my name there instead of Christoph's name. And then we're going to do the same as we did before, git clone, and paste that link in, and it will now download my fork of the source code. So this is exactly the same as we did for Christoph's. Okay, so here we go. There's the source code. Looks just like we had before, but if we go to git branch, oh, got to actually cd into the HISE folder first. Git branch. So we're on the master branch. If I go git checkout development, we're now on the development branch. And if I go git checkout develop, it says it can't find one because I don't have a develop branch. So now what I want to do is be able to track any changes that Christoph makes to his original version. So we're going to go to GitHub again, go to Christoph's version, code, copy, and then we're going to write git remote add upstream. So upstream means, if we think of my fork as being down the stream, Christoph's is up the stream. He was the original version. And then we paste that link and hit enter. And now if I go git remote v, we can see there's the origin is now mine, David Healey, and the upstream is Christoph. So what this allows us to do is to add branches that are tracking upstream changes. So to get the latest changes from Christoph, we're going to write git fetch upstream, and we'll just clear that, so we don't need to see it, it's fine. But once we've done that, now we can track his particular branch. So if I write git branch, you'll see that we still just have my two branches, my master branch and my development branch. But I want to track Christoph's develop branch. So we're going to write git checkout -b. So -b is for creating a new branch. And then I'm going to write the name of the branch I want. So Christoph develop. If I was to hit enter at this point, it would just create a new branch called Christoph develop based on my development branch. But we're going to write --track upstream /develop. So we're saying we want to track the upstream develop branch, and we want to track it with and give it a name locally as Christoph develop. So I'll hit enter. Now if I type git branch, we can see we've got a new branch called Christoph develop. If I type git log, we can see it was updated today, Tuesday, November 30th. Press Q to come out of there. So now I want to merge the changes from Christoph's develop branch into my development branch. So this is where it can be quite handy to have a GUI interface for Git, because we may end up with some conflicts, and you can do it through a text editor or through the terminal, but I find it easier to fix conflicts using a GUI tool. So we'll write git checkout. So we want to merge Christoph develop into development. So we'll check out the development branch, and then we'll write git merge Christoph develop and hit enter. And good, we got some conflicts. I was hoping we would so that I could show you how we fix them. So we've merged Christoph develop into development, and it said it's auto merging, it found a conflict, auto merging, found another conflict, and these are ones that it's managed to fix by itself. And then it's auto merging that, removing some bits. But here it's saying, where is it? Automatic merge failed, fix conflicts, and then commit the result. So if we write git status, we'll see all of this green stuff that all succeeded, that was fine. These are all the changes that have been made. But these red ones here are where there's been conflicts with these different files. And if you are maintaining your own version of the source code, you're going to get conflicts like this when you do merges, and you're going to need to know how to fix them. And in this case, we've only got 3, and I can see that they're going to be fairly easy to fix. So first of all, we can see that this one here is the HISE standalone juicer. So that's when you open Producer, you'll have seen this a million times. You're opening the HISE juicer file, and you might make changes in here, you might customize things. And whenever you do that and you save it, it's going to conflict with the version that's in Christoph's develop branch, or master branch, whatever branch he's got. So you're always going to get this conflict, and we can just ignore that. So we're going to ignore that one. And this one here is actually an auto-generated file from when the juicer file is saved. So these two are kind of related. So both of those we can ignore. This one is some change I must have made to the expansion handler. So we'll look at that. So what I do is I use a GUI app for resolving these, but you can do it through a text editor. So I'll show you quickly how we do it in a text editor. So we're going into core, what was that? Expansion handler. So if we just look down this file, and hopefully we'll spot them. There it is. So we can see that it inserts these little blocks into a text file. So you can see it says head. That's where the where we're tracking at in our local repo, and then this is showing what's in the develop version that we're trying to merge from Christoph. And there should be another line somewhere. There it is. Yeah. So that, again, that's the head section, and then this is the Christoph develop section. But it can be a bit hard to maneuver around this in a text editor and make changes, because basically what you'd have to do is delete different lines and then save the files and whatnot. I find it a bit tricky to do cleanly in a text editor, and this is where a GUI can really be helpful. So let's look at editing this in a GUI. So what I use is actually the text editor that I use is Atom. And I think it's actually made by GitHub, the people behind GitHub. And it's a text editor for, well, you can edit all kinds of text in it. You can use it for web development. I use it for web development and C++ and all sorts of stuff, really. And you can load in a project. And the great thing for me is it has a Git interface built in, and it can interact with GitHub as well. So depending on which GUI you've chosen to use, it will look slightly different, but you'll have something like this where it shows the merge conflicts. If we click on these, it will open these files, and I can see exactly what the conflicts are. So this is the juicer file that we looked at before, and I don't even need to look through here to find the issues because I don't care about them in the juicer file. I know that any changes I've made in the juicer file, I want to keep. So here's the juicer file. I'm going to right click on it, and I'm going to say resolve as hours. And same with this one, resolve as hours. And there must be another conflict in that one, so resolve as hours. And then let's just come out of there. So those are good, they say ready. So what we can do with those is we click on them and click stage, and this adds them to what's called the staging area. So you remember we saw all those green ones. So these are all in the staging area, ready to be committed, and these ones aren't. So we now want to add these to the staging area. So we'll just right click stage, and then now down here in the staging area, ready to be committed. And all committing means is that you're taking all these changes that have been made and you're applying a tag to them, a label. So like all those commits we saw in here, these are each a commit that represents some change that's been made. So if we click on this one, for example, we can see this is the change that is represented by this commit. So now if we click on this one, this expansion handler one, and where is it? There it is. So now we can see this is the advantage of the GUI because it really makes it clear what the changes are. So now, do I want to use what I've got in my version, or do I want to use what Christoph has in his version? Well, I'm going to go for my version, so I'll click use me. The other way I could do that is right click on here and go resolve as hours, but I don't know if I want to resolve all of the conflicts as hours. I need to go through and see them all. So where's my scroll bar? There it is. So now I'll just go through and I'm looking for the next conflict. There should be another one in here. There it is. And I want to use mine again. And now it's saying it's ready. So I will save this file, Control S, close it, stage, and now I can just click this commit button, and that's all the merge conflicts fixed. If I go to git status, there's now nothing. Oh, everything's good, working. There is nothing to commit, working tree clean. And go to git branch, we're on my development branch, git log, and we can see the latest change now to my development branch is Christoph's latest change, where we've merged it in. And there's all his other commits below it. So this is the way you should be managing different versions of the HISE source code. So now what I can do is I can open Producer and open the standalone juicer file from the HISE source code. So that would be in projects, standalone, juicer. So I could open that file now in Producer, and then I could build HISE, and it would build it at this particular version with these particular commits. If I wanted to build the master one, I'd just go checkout master. So every time you switch branch, you need to rebuild HISE to build it with the latest changes. And it's usually a good idea when you're switching branches to clean the build folder. So depending on which compiler you're using, it'll be like project clean build folder, in order to clear out any old versions before you rebuild HISE using the version you've just checked out. If you're checking out a lot of commits and you're switching between versions a lot, you'll probably want to build debug builds until you've settled on the commit you're going to sort of work on permanently or for a long period of time, because debug builds will build much faster because I don't have to do the linking, which is a really slow part of it. Okay, I hope you found this useful. Let me know if you've got any questions or if you want me to go into more details about any part of this. I know I went over some of these commands pretty quickly, but you can always slow down the video or replay it. And there aren't many commands to remember. Git clone, git branch, git merge, git checkout, that's the important one, and git pull. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.